How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right, Maria. So welcome to the battlefield of the mind. Of course, we have to just go into the obvious. Who the heck is Maria Kellis? Who is this? Why is Rick talking to Maria? What does she do? And I'm excited to not only hear about what you work in leadership, but how you got to the point to be a person who leads leaders. So please, Maria, tell your story.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here, Rick. I really appreciate it. And my goal and my intention in every single interview is to help and support people, empower people, remind each and every person who listens to this podcast that no matter what your past is, no matter what the pain is that you have been carrying, you can let it go. And more than that, you can thrive. I remember years ago, somebody told me that I was too broken to be fixed. And I always start by saying that is not true. That is not true. Anybody who's willing can get to whatever they want. So who is Maria Kellis? That's a good question. So Maria is a person who was born in Greece. I have two Greek parents, and when I was young, we moved to France, which means that very early on, I had to redefine everything because everything I took for granted disappeared. Then for college, I went to Boston, specifically MIT. So I have 3 degrees from MIT, so in mechanical engineering, product development, and the Sloan School of Management. And then I got engaged. My first job out of MIT was working for the MIT Media Lab. So I was very much an intellectual up to that point. And part of it is that I grew up in a very abusive environment, very, very difficult environment, very challenging. The only thing that mattered was my achievements. So I was a super overachiever. And then I got engaged to a guy because he could make me cry. Up to that point, I had no emotions whatsoever. I felt nothing. So as far as I was concerned, crying was pretty cool. And so we went to, he wanted to start a PhD at Berkeley. He waited a year around for me to decide to go with him. And then I did. So then we left for California. On our way there, things were starting to fall apart health-wise for me. But I didn't really pay attention. Then we arrived in California in Berkeley, and things were getting more and more difficult. And I didn't know there were things coming up that I didn't understand were happening. I believe my body was slowly breaking down, except I wasn't paying attention until finally, one fateful Sunday, I will never forget that day. I was in the shower, just taking a shower, and then the water wasn't turning on to hot. Like I was testing with my legs, and it was just not turning to hot. And then I started seeing the fumes, and I'm like, okay, that's weird. So with my hand, the water was burning, but with my legs, not hot. So I was like, okay, I think I need to go to the doctor. So I had lost what we call the sensation of hot and cold. In the next few days, I kept going to the doctor because little things were starting to seriously go wrong. And the doctor, instead of listening to me, he kept saying, oh, do you need attention? Do you feel lonely? Should we get you to a psychiatrist? He was wrong. It's I'm I need a neurologist. But by Wednesday or Thursday, I literally was having trouble walking. And so I ignored the doctor and then I just went to the ER, and I told them there's something very wrong with me. And they started doing tests. Very shortly after, I think during the night, between Wednesday and Thursday night, I had tremendous pain. Tremendous. I mean, I was screaming pain. And that was the beginning. And then the next few days, it was a lot of pain management. And I was like, what is that? What is happening? My body was breaking down. that was a very severe attack of multiple sclerosis. So I was diagnosed eventually with multiple sclerosis. And multiple sclerosis can hit as a disease. It's an autoimmune disease, so our body's attacking ourselves, and it was attacking my brain. So I had a lot of weird symptoms, but it also was attacking my spine, which makes it very severe, and that's why I lost the ability to walk. And the pain I was feeling was what we call neuropathic pain, which is pain, gratuitous pain. It's just suffering for no reason. And this was a very difficult period, right? Because, yeah, it happened pretty fast how I lost the symptoms. It wasn't exactly a car accident, but within a few days. And it took months and years to recover. For the first few months, there was no progress whatsoever. So they told me that it looked like I had a progressive form of the disease, which was not exactly ideal. They were painting the picture that I was pretty much going to be one of those people that just drool in a wheelchair. I was just not happy about that. I had just graduated college, so that means I didn't have a lot of savings, and all of them went into the hospital bills. Pretty soon, I had nothing. My fiance, remember I was engaged, actually left me, telling me that even if we had children, he will be leaving me because he just didn't want to deal with this. We were too young. He just didn't want to get settled with that for the rest of his life. I thought I had some friends. I mean, I was new to the area, but I had some friends from school. All of them disappeared, except for a couple. So I even my own brothers just didn't bother showing up. Like one of them did, but for something else, and he came to visit. So it was this moment of game over. But this was very dramatic at the time. But it was the beginning of a journey for me. Because as things were getting worse and worse, I really started accepting the reality. They were telling me, well, you just have to accept your new life. That's your new reality. And I just wasn't willing to. And at that time, I had lost everything. So my body, obviously, my, financial state, I qualified for food stamps. Not only was on welfare, but I qualified for food stamps at that point. My fiance left me, all my social circle disappeared. I remember I was looking for a job at the time, and a person called me in the hospital saying, hey, we'd like to interview. And I was like, oh, can I come in a few days in the hospital? And I'll never forget that. It was like, oh, click. They didn't even bother to say, I'm sorry. They just hang up the phone. And I was devastated. Everything was going wrong. Everything that I knew was leaving me. And little by little, I realized that this was not exactly a 5-minute adventure. So, but I gained an awareness. I realized I'm not my body. My body was broken. But I had an awareness of being a Maria. I'm like, who's that? Who am I? My emotions were broken. My emotions depended on the happy drugs. Like I knew to say no morphine because I had watched the movie Frida and I knew that morphine is for terminal patients, but I didn't know anything about opiates at the time. So, they kept pumping me full of opiates, and my emotions really depended on the happy drugs I was taking. So I'm not my emotions, but I was still Maria, right? I'm not my memory because, well, huge chunks of my memory disappeared. But somehow I was still me. And so not my body, not my emotions, not my thoughts, not my memory. So who am I? This became that moment of awakening, that moment of awareness. Who am I? Who is the Maria that's sitting here with everything broken, but somehow there's something there? And this became a very spiritual awareness without me knowing that it was a spiritual awareness. I just knew that I was in a terrible pain and everything was broken. Eventually I had to get off opiates, and of course, by that time I was addicted, so I had to go on methadone. And, in the meantime, I had terrible pain. And at the hospital, they gave me something called a meditation tape. I had never heard of meditation before. And in the meditation, there was water, pain was fire, and then I was imagining water coming and putting down the fire. And I was like, okay. So what happens? How come this helps when nothing else is helping? So I said, okay, I'm going to learn meditation, quote unquote, because I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it seems to be helping. And so I started meditating, and very soon I took a class way back then. That's 2004. There was a teacher that was teaching online, and it was actually over the phone, right? Not even online at the time. And so I paid a lot of money for me at the time, because remember, completely broke, right? It was $1,500 to get this class. And I'm sitting in the class, and he's saying, oh, just relax, quiet your mind, and focus on the third eye, that point between your eyebrows. And I just literally sent him an email saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my money back. And he actually told me, he said, it's okay, sure you can, but can we make a deal? Can you meditate for 1 week? And I said, sure, I want my money back. I was willing to do anything at that point. Money was really scarce. And so on day 4 or 5, I had what they call a very intense experience. So I went through what we call a wormhole, and I was aware of different dimensions. And I was like, whoa, what is that? I was on Google trying to figure out what that is. But that's almost 20 years ago. But back then I knew nothing. All I knew was that something had happened that was significant. And I started following those threads, which was eventually the path to my healing. I also had one of my doctors, my gastroenterologist, give me a book. It was about the work from Bernie Siegel, and he is an oncologist who has studied people who have cancer, except in his study, he didn't study how people die from cancer, because we all know how that works. But he studied people who survive. And he called them extraordinary patients. He said it didn't matter, that there was no correlation. It didn't matter what cancer they had, how advanced it was, it just mattered what they wanted. So I set an intention. I said, you know what? I'm going to not be this. This is not going to be the rest of my life. So this is the moment when I understood intention. I set the intention that I was going to be well. It took me 18 months to get out of the wheelchair. And I remember the moment. The insurance had approved the motorized wheelchair. So they came with a motorized wheelchair for me to demo it. And I remember it was so painful and so difficult. It was so much pain at the time. And I remember looking at it, and, after I demoed it, I went around the block and I said, don't like it. I'll call you back. Right? I said, I don't want it right now, and I'll call you. And the guy was a little confused, but he didn't care, right? So he just let me be. And then I kind of made that decision. I will never need that wheelchair. And I started learning how to walk. At the time, it was super difficult. But thankfully, a friend of mine, I told you there were a few select people that I consider family at this point that had come. So one of my dear friends from college had come, and she had a baby, and her baby was less than 1 year old. And she was trying to walk, and I was trying to walk, and she was falling. I was falling. So instead of comparing myself to adults, which was super depressing, I was comparing myself to the baby, because I was like, how many times Zoe's her name? How many times did Zoe fall today? How many times did Maria fall today? Okay, soon enough, Zoe was surpassing Maria, but I kept going. And that was the beginning. So I'm painting this picture, this pretty bleak picture, because I want to say that it didn't start from anything rosy and happy. This was game over, truly game over for me. But I did have a warrior mentality. I had grown up in a very abusive environment. I had been abused mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, the whole package. And it continued into my adult life with various people. So I had this feeling of always being at war inside me, which obviously was manifesting in my body as well. And, but that also meant that I won't give up. That also meant that if people told me that life is over, I will say, let me reflect on that. I'm not sure that's true. So, the fact that I didn't accept those, not death sentences, but life sentences, I think it's part of what gets me to be who I am today. And today I live around the world. I have a pretty successful business. I am a speaker. I'm a healer. I'm a leadership coach. And I help people stand in their power authentically as themselves, so they can have the success and life of their dreams. Because I truly believe we design the life we want.
That's an amazing story. Thanks for telling your story, because dang, there's a lot to go into. And I appreciate the way that you put this together, which gives me just some questions. Understanding the abuse side that you went through, you said the war manifested, and the way I've heard this explained, especially spirit side coaches, the war manifested in your body from storing the abuse. Like here you were going into repression. It sounds like you went into the achiever mindset. That means like that achievement equals love. And in order for you to get love, you had to keep doing things for others. I had to achieve something. I had to win. I had to be the best. I had to be a champion. I had to do all that can be done. I had to get the best grades, the best scores, the best everything. I had to be the best, right?
Absolutely.
And then it seems like you built your entire life around this system of achievement. And it seems like the life lesson that was so brutally given is if you deny who you are, as far as even your emotions, and your memory, your body, your thoughts, if you deny all of these things and only focus on winning and achieving and build your life around people who only are with you because you win and achieve, because you're going to only accept what it is that you believe is true, which is love comes from achievement. So I'll only be around people who value achievement. And then when all of your achievement is taken away and you have to be authentic, you'll see the way that doesn't work. You'll see that if I build a life around my perceived belief on what is safe and secure, eventually when tested, it'll show that it's not.
Yes. And I have to say, this happened in my 20s. So now, of course, from my perspective, I am extremely lucky that this happened so early, because I gain awarenesses that usually takes a whole lifetime to gain. And I believe that I was meant to be a teacher. I was meant to teach what I'm doing. Like this was absolutely my purpose, because not only you will assume that being in a wheelchair is pretty bad already, right? But from 2004 until 2012, I had a series of accidents and diseases. So MS being, of course, the first and primary and big one, but I had a whole bunch of crazy things. I fell through a roof. I had other accidents. I had other diseases that were always like I burned myself, like I burned my leg to the point where I was taking off my clothes and my skin was going out with it, right? I mean, these kind of like serious accidents, extremely painful, because every time I was getting better through this process that I now call the empower process. And I had to really live it, understand it in a very deep way. And it starts with setting an intention. The second part is letting go, clearing. The third part is gratitude. And the fourth path is trust. And I'm still mastering trust. It's been my life's journey, truly. In 2012, I had what they call a near-death experience. So I literally fell in a construction shaft, and it was pretty brutal. I landed on my head. So I kind of broke my jaw. All the back teeth in my face are fake, right? They were all broken, and broke my back in a few more places. I've broken my back 4 times at this point. But, I landed, of course, I projected my hand. So not only I broke this part, but I also broke this part of my hand, which is either or, but in my hand, in my case, it was so impactful that a lot of things broke. And at that point, I quote unquote died. And when I quote unquote died, I didn't only go, people say that when they quote unquote die or about to die, they see this life going through very fast. I went through hundreds of lives going back thousands of years. And I understood what we call here in the East karma. And that's why I came to study karma in the East, because I was like, okay, with my Christian beliefs, I'm Christian. That doesn't make sense at all. But I can't deny what I experienced. I spoke to the doctors in the hospital who, of course, they put me on antipsychotic medications. Without telling me, by the way, they were antipsychotic. They told me that they were pain medications. Until after I left the hospital and I researched, and I was like, this drug doesn't seem to work really well for me. And then, especially not for pain. And then I was like, oh, antipsychotic. Okay, nice. Thanks, doctors. But it's almost I had to fight over and over again for not being crazy, for the belief. Even in Christianity, like I'm Christian. In Greece, like I always joke that Greek Orthodox Christians are like Catholics on steroids. And it was sort of, in 2008, my dad got sick in 2008, and then I went back to Greece, 2009. And the church, when they started, but by that time I had started healing people. And when they discovered that what I could do, they sent me through for exorcisms. Because they're like, there's no way. You're not approved by the church, so you must be possessed. I wasn't. And I did go because in my belief at that time, I'm like, I guess they're right. What else could I be doing, right? I mean, there must be some demon operating through me because, demons heal.
Yeah, that'll learn them. It makes sense. If you're helping people do better and you're healing people, it must be a demon. Of course, I can see these guys really put in the work. They did their homework. Like, demons are trying to trick us by healing people. They're doing the same thing Jesus did to screw with us. I know it.
In 2018, there was one person dying in the church. It was during Easter service in the middle of the church. The guy was having a heart attack, and there were doctors there looking at him die. And somebody called me, and I just put my hands in his chest, and he came back. And because I did that in the middle of the church has now left me alone. Thank you. And more than that, my own mother, my mother, we were going home afterwards, and she's like, Maria, can I say something? I'm like, sure. She's like, and this is my mom who's been saying all this and has been observing and seeing everything that happened. She's like, I think I can finally say that you're not doing the work of the devil because you heal somebody in the church.
It's all it took. Finally. Now Jesus can do miracles in Nazareth. Thank you. Thank you, Mom, for the permission to not be the devil. I appreciate you.
Well, but I can see how in her belief system and in somebody traditional's belief system, what I do is not normal. And I can see that goes against everything we understand and believe.
It's so funny, though, if you really think about it. Now, this is where I challenge the way that people teach religion versus what, faith or God really is is it's funny to say that I believe in a God that can create miracles, yet if somebody who serves creates miracles from God, that must be evil. What an interesting thing. Like, no, I believe God and Jesus and there are miracles and those exist and angels and I believe all these things. But if God actually works through somebody, that's the devil.
Well, I wasn't exactly in their frame of mind. Like I'm not a man, so I wasn't a priest. Like I know for sure that as I got better, if I had been a man, I would have been a priest. But a woman can only be a nun in Greece. And a nun is actually not exactly a free creature. I can't see anybody. Like I actually went to a nunnery like a couple times because I was like, what other path can I have? Right. And it was not for me. It's like, okay, I appreciate prayer like more than the average person. I really pray a lot and, I feel happy, but I'm here to serve. I'm here to help people. I'm not here to be hidden away in a corner without being allowed to talk to, because even in Greece, like, a nun is not allowed to talk to anybody unless it's the Mother Superior, and even so, unless they have the permission of the priest, right? And it's sort of like I actually worked for the church for a little bit, and I discovered there were like a hierarchy, right? So there's God and Jesus and the saints and the Virgin Mary. And then we have the monks, and then we have the priests, and then we have the men who serve the church, and then we have the nuns, and then all the way in the bottom are the women. So I have some things to say about being a woman, being free, and being powerful as a woman.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have. And you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We've got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story.
No, I see so many correlations already jumping into the story here. And like, I just had a really good talk with a woman who also became like the head of her church, but also ended up challenging everything in her own church because she was finding the same things you're saying. And she's like, I'm going to challenge all of these things. So actually the podcast that just came out, I think it was yesterday for us. Mrs. Sedler, she's awesome. So I'll have to share it with you because Shelly Settles, she's in her 70s. I want to say she said she's in her 70s. She looks much younger, but she's like, I got that Nordic white hair, but she's done all of the same things, especially for empowering women through faith. And she was, Christian also, and going, why are we treated like secondhand citizens when we weren't made by mistake here? We are allowed to have purpose.
And Jesus himself, the first person he called was Mary Magdalene.
Exactly.
He didn't, God does not, I remember there was one priest who came and talked to me, must have been around 2010, maybe 8, I don't remember. But he said to me one thing, he said, I am sorry because I see that God has called you. And I also want to apologize on behalf of the church for what we did to women. Because the calling was clear to me. There was nothing else. And over the years, I have transitioned. I said, well, you know what? The church doesn't like me, so I don't have to serve the church, but I can still serve God, and I can reach people that the church cannot reach.
I was curious, which church did Jesus go to?
well, Jesus was Jewish, and they crucified him. So
Yeah, so that's interesting. So who did Jesus make the most upset because he was healing people and going against traditional people's beliefs of what it was? Who did he make the maddest?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the Pharisees. And I don't want to say at this point, don't compare me to Jesus, because obviously I'm just a human. I'm just a little person, right? but definitely the parallel is there. Yeah.
If we have a parallel too, this doesn't mean I'm saying you're Jesus, but I am saying it's ironic that if you were to follow in his footsteps in any way, shape, or form, that you would be wrong. And that's the irony that I see.
I started getting all these powers, quote unquote. And I literally followed in Jesus' footsteps because I was like, I believe in healing. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in love. And I said, well, at the highest vibration, the highest level, what do saints or Jesus do? Healing, miracles and healing. So I was like, okay, that's what I do. And that's what I did for many years. I don't do that specifically too much anymore, because I believe in empowering people, and I've always been a business person. So I believe in empowering people and changing business. And the reason is because I kind of have this thing about helping the whole entire world. And I believe as I help people empower in leadership, they help the people around them. And that to me is much more important. And moreover, I have come to one understanding that is very clear. It's not about me, it's about we. So if I do the miracles, then it's about Maria. That if I teach people how to do miracles, and I don't necessarily call it miracles, extraordinary things themselves, and they have the power, and I teach them the steps. And I call the method the empower method. So it's really, how do you gain your power? How do you control your life? How do you choose your life? How do you create your life by design? Then they teach others, and they can do it in every field that they want. In every field that they want. It doesn't matter if it's because they want money, because they want help, because they want relationships. It doesn't matter. And it's almost like the more leaders I teach, the more they help their people. So I feel that I have a much bigger impact.
I don't see why they'd have to be mutually exclusive, but I definitely like,
yes, sure.
Because if you've got this amazing gift to heal, you can do both, like, for sure.
Yeah. I have found that there's one thing. It's about people, and I always call it, like, this comes from ancient Greek philosophy, but there's 4 levels, and I'll give you my spin to it. There's 4 levels of responsibility. Things happen to me. I'm the victim. Things happen to me. I'm the lucky one. Things happen. So that's like the whole Eastern philosophy, the observer. I am just the observer. And things happen through me. I'm the creator. And I like to help people create, because I truly believe that I don't have any amazing powers. I'm not Saint Maria or anything. I'm just a normal person. But I have a true belief, true faith, and I trust the divine. So if I instill that in people and I do that, then they can do that for themselves. Because all healing is self-healing. All I can do, if they believe that Maria can do the healing for them, they will be healed. If they cannot believe it, nothing happens. And I've seen it. I had this lady, it was really funny. It was in Greece. It was a friend of my mom. And she fell down and she hurt herself really badly. And I was there. So my mom called me and I went to her house and I was putting my hands on her and her pain was disappearing. She's like, I don't know what this little kid can do. How can this happen? Right. And I could tell in her mind, she didn't believe me. And I was like, but that's a miracle from God. And she didn't believe it. So you know what? I came up with an idea. I said, you might be in pain for 3 or 4 days, but after that, it will go away. Just trust in that. And it was really funny because she was so sure it cannot happen that for 3 or 4 days, she was in pain for 3 days, right? But in her mind, she knew on the 4th day, I can be relieved. So then on the 4th day, she woke up with no pain, obviously. And it was really funny because for a while she was going around the village saying to people, this little kid, I don't know how she did it, but she predicted that I was going to be well on day 4. And it was a miracle. I woke up and I had no pain and I couldn't even walk or breathe the day before. And I was like laughing. And I'm like, lady, you healed yourself. I didn't do anything. It just happened to believe on day 4 because you had suffered enough for 3 days. You're like, okay, day 4. Maria said 3 to 4 days. So yeah, day 4, let's do that.
These are amazing stories. These are beautiful things. I think it's interesting that you broke down like if I had them right, the victim, the observer, the lucky one, and the creator. Is that right?
No. So it's things happen to me. I am the victim. So this is the lowest vibration, and this is where most of us live. So things happen to me. So it rains. Yeah, the rain falls on me. Somebody yells at me. That happened to me. I was born in an abusive household. That happened to me. The government did this. That happened to me. Anything that is happening to me. I'm just reacting to life. And the second level is very similar, but different because things happen to me, but at least they happen for me. So, it's so lucky that I got in a wheelchair and my fiancé left me because, well, otherwise I'll be stuck being married to him, right? And so this was a lucky thing that happened to me. Or, the rain fell and it watered the garden and now I don't have to do the watering. So this happened for me. I had the accident and all the diseases and now I understand the world in a much better way. So this happened to me, but for me at this point. Right. So I am so lucky because it happened in my 20s. So I had all this time to develop this awareness and wisdom that you don't find in people under 70 or 80. Right. And I am very lucky in that way. Right. So that's the second awareness is still thinking victim because things happen, but they happen for us. So at least we're lucky. And I always say to people, this can only be walked one level at a time. So if you feel that things happen to you, start turning it around with your mind. This happened for me. What happened? Okay, this was lucky. I missed the bus. Oh my God, this was so lucky because, and find a reason. At least you will feel lucky and you'll feel much better. The next level is level of awareness of observing. So this is almost like we're at our center and we're observing. No matter what happens, it's not positive or negative. We're in the Zen field. Everything's okay. So we're like, oh, okay, that happened. So we're observing. Nothing is good or bad. There's no judgment. And this takes a little bit of stepping back. This takes a little bit of introspection, perspective. And that's why I say the next level, because we are able to differentiate ourselves from the actor, and we're now the director. We're looking at the picture. So this is a movie. We're part of the movie, but we're kind of observing the movie. Or we're not the spectator, we're the director. And now the next level, things happen through me, the level of the creator. I'm not only the actor, but I'm also the director. I know that whoever came into my life was for a benefit. So, for example, I was sexually abused as an adult as well. Why? Because I had blocked out all my childhood abuse memories. And I needed to remember, I needed to heal. So it's almost like I ignored it for years, until I was able to heal the adult version. And as I was healing the adult version, memories started coming back from childhood. And that was rough. And obviously I will not be able to do it unless, so this happened for me, right? This happened. But then as I put myself in the observer and I started healing, I was able to look at this and go, oh, I can see where my anger, this tremendous amount of anger comes from. And there was a part of me that wanted to play victim. Why me? And I remember there was recently, I had something come up, and a friend of mine, who's Canadian, she was telling me her sister works in the prison system, And 90% of Portuguese women who are in the prison system have been abused sexually as children. And so she said, and it gave me the perspective I needed. I was like, oh my God, look at me. At least I'm not in prison. Okay, I'm good. And so suddenly it gave me the perspective, that moment of clarity that I needed in order to step back. Because even after all these years of doing this work, there's a little part of me that really hurts, right? And as those trauma is released, I always tell people trauma release is extremely difficult work. Like when I work with people on trauma release, I'm like, you may hate me temporarily. Just remember, I'm not doing this to hurt you. But it's almost like there's a wound that's festering. We have to open up the wound, take out the pus or whatever yucky things are in there, and then you can heal. Otherwise, you cannot.
No, thank you for breaking it down. Yeah, I like the belief system part where you can look at things like things happen to me, things happen for me, things happened, and then things happen through me. And I like the way you broke that down. Appreciate that very much. And I think it's almost like foreshadowing how strong you are when people will try and use doubt, but it may even be like a prophecy. At the very first thing you said is, you're too broken to be fixed, is what somebody told you. You're too broken to be fixed. And it's almost like you just did with the to me, for me, and then through me. It seems like they had the prophecy almost. It was, you had to be broken to fix others.
I believe that, and it's very, very common, this idea, healer, heal thyself first. But the reason I care, the reason I deeply care, and I want to help people is because I went through so much. I suffered so much. And because I suffer so much, I don't want anybody to suffer. I don't want to see anyone suffering. So I will do what is necessary to support people so they're not suffering. And I care because anything I can see in their pain, I have compassion for them. And I can tell you something. People who are very angry, and usually the people who put in prison and the people who would torture are usually victims themselves. And they have suffered so much. Their pain is so great that they're acting it out. And yeah, they're destructive to society, but we are punishing them further. Remember what I was telling about Portuguese women who are in prison system? It's horrible. Instead of healing these women, helping them heal, we are punishing them. And it's almost like I am not that strong, so I haven't ever worked in the prison system, but I can see how a lot of people will work in the prison system to help the prisoners. Maybe one day I will do that. I don't know. So far I'm out in the world, but who knows? Because I can see the pain that is being manifested. And when somebody hurts me, I know they're in pain. The one thing, and I'm going to talk about boundaries now. I have been hurt a lot. And there was almost a badge of honor that I am able to tolerate and take it on. And now I say, you know what? If you hurt me personally, I'm not going to help you. Because that's where I draw the boundary. I know you're angry. I know you're in pain. I know you want somebody else to be at fault. But it's not going to be me because you hired me to help you. I am here with the best intention. And it took me many years to get to that point. I know that I pray for people all the time. I do my absolute 100% best, 150% best. But I also know that I will not sit around to be hurt. I will not sit around to be punished. I don't believe in being a victim. I don't believe in being meek and taking it. I'm not a doormat. I am here to help, and I help a lot of people. But in order to help other people, I need to be healthy. I need to be okay. I need to take care of myself, and nobody else will take care of myself except Maria. And that's okay. I am okay with me taking care of myself. And that's super important because I see so many people who are like, here, take everything. Take everything. You can hurt me and I love you anyway. And yeah, I will love you. I will love you, but I will not sit around to be hurt. And that's a boundary. And I feel that those are important to have.
And there's a lot of people who do not understand the difference between boundaries and demands, but you're right that people will sacrifice themselves. There's a coping type, I call it the negotiator. It falls under fawning. And and this is where people will people please to the point where they'll sacrifice who they are just so somebody else can be okay. And they take on another person's emotions as their own responsibility. So their pain, their trauma, their emotions, all their reactions. Yeah. Well, that's on me to take care of that. So you're okay. So whatever I have to sacrifice of myself so that you're all right, I'll do that. But it never works.
I did that for years. The reason I stopped is because I literally almost died. There was one man who was, it was in Italy years ago. And they said that my rates were too expensive. And I said, okay, I'll do it for free, right? And then later I discovered they didn't have any money problems. They just didn't want to pay. But that guy, so I had seen the children and they had told me their father, the father was going to the hospital for surgery and they were going to remove part of his stomach because he had cancer. And when the doctors went there, they removed his entire stomach plus part of his esophagus and intestines because the cancer had spread and they couldn't stop the bleeding. So he was literally dying. And they called me and they said, what's going on, right? And so I went there, not physically, because obviously he was in a different country, but I went there spiritually and picked him up as he was transitioning. Because from my ego perspective, and remember, it's very important to not have ego when we do this work, but at the time I still did. And from the ego perspective, I can accept the fact that I had told them that he was going to be okay and he was dying. And I literally almost died because I should never have done that. But I didn't know better at the time. It was early on, that it was around 2012 maybe. And I almost died. I literally passed out for 14 hours afterwards. And people were calling me, my mom, she was traveling. She dreamt that she went to the house and the house was empty. And she's like, are you okay? Somebody stole everything. And these people, they kind of had zero understanding of what happened and zero gratitude and appreciation. So the father came out of surgery and he felt great, to the point where he was released 2-3 days later and he went home and started exercising because why not? I want to get back my strength. He didn't realize the guy almost died. He was unconscious at the time. They told him, but he ignored it, right? And guess what? A week or so later, they called me because now he was dying from something else. And I'm like, will you help? And I'm like, no. Eventually they insisted and I said, yes, I will. But this time you're paying me, absolutely. And I am not doing anything. I am just going to tell him what he can do for himself. And that's why now I teach people what they can do for themselves, because this is I'm sorry, but that was a miracle. And I almost died. And that guy just went home to exercise after major surgery that almost killed him. What? But he felt great. So I was like, wow, if you don't appreciate that, how can I help you? And now I make people work for things because I'm like, you need to ask. You need to know what you're getting. You need to understand. Otherwise, it's wasted on you. People always say, well, I keep praying and nothing happens. I'm like, well, do you really mean it with all your heart? And are you willing? What are you willing to give up for it? People say, well, I want this and that and that. I'm like, okay, you can have everything you want in life. Absolutely everything, 100%. And you absolutely don't get it for free. The trade usually is pain. And I have a method, the Empower method, which is like intention, clearing, gratitude, and trust. And I can go more into that, but that method is a method that you need to have discipline. Because you're not going to get it for free. There's no, it's funny, people, that's why I don't even say anymore that I do miracles. Because I attract all these people who want it to be done for them. I remember going to India and I had all these people following me around saying, Guru, Guru. I'm like, I am no guru. I'm not even your patient. What are you talking about? And it's sort of like, it occurred to me that I don't want to cultivate the victim mentality. I'm not here. I'm no savior. I'm here to show you the way, and you can follow the way. The way I'm showing you will work as long as you put in the work.
That's an amazing story. Like, that's wild. And for you to go in and like spirit walk into somebody's transitioning and bring them back just for them to be like, whatever, I don't care. Like, people are, it's amazing the amount of grace that God can give, considering like how much people don't appreciate.
Yes. But I think it was also my learning. I feel that a lot of what happened is for me to understand, and for me to understand the gift, and for me to understand humility. There was a period between 2008 and 12 when I was starting to work on this, where I went into ego. I do this.
It's you. Yeah, when you took it all on you.
Yeah.
Hey, Maria, can I ask you to wait 1 second? My daughter just asked me to call her. She said she's having an emergency. Can I just check in on her real quick?
Of course, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just let Randy know that right now. We'll just cut this part out. Give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry about that, Maria. So she's 17, just turned 17. She's driving in a severe thunderstorm now and can't see, and she's like panicking because she's hitting puddles and I don't know what to do. But she's only a couple miles away. I'm like, you can do this. You've got it.
Okay. I'm okay to pray for her.
Yeah, she's got this. She's okay.
What is her name?
This is Caitlin.
Yeah, she's very scared. Okay. She should feel a little bit better.
Yeah, she can finally see again. Thank you for that. I appreciate you very much. I can see she's less than a mile away, so she's like almost home, and like the storm has let up quite a bit. So, thank you.
So she's getting better because I could feel her pain, and I was like, wait. Since I'm here, might as well.
No, I thank you so much. Yeah, and like, if you've got the power, I appreciate you for channeling it towards her. Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, I don't have any power. This is God. All I did was.
If God is working through you, I am grateful. So thank you for being the conduit, even if that's what it is.
Absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to.
You know, I've connected way too much spirit side to deny. And so like, I'm not going to be one of the ones who are like, nope, only what the books say. I'm like, I've felt too much and gone through too much to say that you're not doing something that's there. There's something there.
I feel that just because we cannot measure it yet does not mean it's not there.
Agreed. I think one thing that helped me with that is that I recently watched the movie, what is it? Interstellar. There was a Matthew McConaughey movie. And
Okay. I
it,
haven't actually seen it. But
you,
okay.
you might like it. The whole first half of it is a little like, convoluted, but once it gets to the part where it gets near black holes and it starts getting into,
Oh,
it starts
sounds
getting
my kind of
into,
movie.
yeah, you'd like, especially the end of it. It didn't make any sense when I was much younger, but I watched it, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, okay, it's a lot more profound than I understood. And it gets into where, um, it starts explaining how time and gravity and things work in a way that we don't understand it. And there's certain things that transcend our reason, things that transcend understanding, beyond
Mhm.
gravity and time and space. And one of the things was love transcends all things. And you're like, it's almost like, if you look at it, it's like we aren't even able to fully comprehend the depth of such a beautiful thing, yet we get it, but we don't get it. And it's interesting that we can have this given to us where they tried to break down like what a diagram of time and space would look like in a 3D model of what a 5D experience would be. And it's kind of like, even if it was explained to us from a fourth dimension or a fifth dimension, we wouldn't be able to conceive it. And the way that I
Is
look at,
is it okay if I give you my understanding? Because I have a pretty simple understanding of this. So time is not linear. In fact, I started seeing this for a little bit of time. I worked as a psychic, and because I could tell the future, and I didn't know any better, so I I was seeing this veil, and I started opening the veil and looking through, and as I was starting looking, I could see the future. So what I realized is that it's not things happen in cycles. So it's almost like there's one cycle and bigger cycle, like bigger cycle. So I realized that we don't go through time. That's why we have the experience of deja vu. If that veil gets thinner, then we see something that's about to happen. And I've had those experiences a lot. I've had many of those mystical experiences. And I started looking at the future for people. And after about a year of doing that, when I got good, I realized there's not one future, there's multiple futures. So then I stopped telling people their future because I'm like, what do you want? Well, that's your future. And instead of telling people what their future is bringing, I was like, well, there's multiple paths. What do you choose? Choose your future, choose your destiny, make a choice, and then I'll tell you what to watch for in that path.
interesting that you've come to this conclusion by being able to look through the veil, because my first book is called Everything is a Choice, with the same belief system on, like, while there may be multiple ideas for like a fate or for a destiny and these things, the causality is still beyond. With each choice reveals the next choice, which reveals the next choice, giving like options for paths that you could choose. And like any one choice can completely alter the entire set of choices. Like even, going on one date or answering one call or having that one situation can completely change your entire course of life, taking a certain job or, going to a certain event. Any one decision can completely change all decisions from that trajectory from then on. And so it's like, this is where I say it's not about what's happening. It's what you choose to do with the things that are happening. And your story is so powerful to kind of reinforce that. But I've also had a lot of deja vu moments from dreams where I'll be, seeing a thing that happens years in the future with people that I don't know in a place that I don't know. And then when that happens, and I've even had it on some of these calls where I'm like, I'm in an exact moment that I dreamed of before, but I'm just meeting you today. But this is an exact moment I've seen with you before, those kind of things. Or, I'll be, and it looks like to me, like these are different fate possibilities, depending on the choices that you make. And some of those dreams that you'll have that could be a possibility don't come true because you made a choice to go a different direction.
And that is why I truly believe things happen through us, because every moment, every choice we make chooses. Now, I want to say something, and that's especially good for us who have been suffering a lot. We can travel in healing. We can travel forward and backwards in time, which means that even things that have been said and have had a series of consequences, well, we can travel back and say, well, what will happen if that had never gone in place? What will happen if I had never been abused at 2 years old? Right? And then moving forward. So when we heal that space, we can. But let me go back to the dimensions that we were mentioning. So I started realizing that it's not, we have these cycles of karma, as it were. And that means that time moves in a circle. And if you think about it, the XYZ 3 dimensions, the spatial dimensions, and if you have time and it's no longer a line, so 4th dimension, but it's a circle, that's 2 more dimensions, right? Very, very simple to understand. And then I realized that as we transcend, as we are better, yeah, we come back to the same circle, but then we come back a little bit above, a little bit different. So in fact, time does not move like a circle, but it moves like a spiral. So like, that's an extra dimension. So 3 dimensions for time, 3 dimensions for space. There you go. You have your 6 dimensions right there. Very easy to understand.
No, yeah, it sounds very easy to understand. There's it's going to be hard for people to really grasp it. Even if it's 100% correct, even for people to grasp the idea is beyond where I think most people would be able to go.
Okay.
I love what you're doing. This is like, and I was thinking we were going to be talking about just leadership, and this direction is wonderful to me. Like I enjoy this.
I do want to talk about leadership because that is the work I do, and because I truly believe in empowering people. And but we can go any way you want.
We'll
we
get
can
there.
certainly have
We'll get there. We can get there. But first, this is wonderful because you're getting into a little bit more esoteric conversations that I enjoy, because we have to challenge the things that we know. And even now in this book I'm writing now, I just wrote, I'm writing even still on the concept of even truth and what is truth.
Yeah, what is truth?
And so even getting the idea of, it's a whole chapter, but even breaking it down into the concept of what you're doing, which is challenging everything. But it seems like if we challenge everything, especially ourselves, for authenticity and growth, we have to be willing to have the difficult or argumentative questions inside of ourselves answered by being inquisitive. But for growth and acceptance, it seems like we need enough humility to be able to have the open mind for new information, because all beliefs and everything that we hear is opinions, not fact, because facts are based on how much information that we know. And so we have to be able to reserve the right to change our minds with new information. And if you're saying, I know more because I've seen more, and I go, well, I didn't see that, so it can't be true. My belief system, which is going to deny any new information, will create facts based only on what we're limited to know. But let's even go with the Socratic concept of like, well, out of all there is to know, I know nothing.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So if that's the grand design on this, I have to take into account a humility that I haven't seen what you've seen, but you've seen things that it seems plausible could be true. So for me to have the ego or arrogance to say that, well, I know all, so you can't know more, is ridiculous.
I believe that the Western world is suffering from one philosopher's opinion, and Descartes. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. That was the Middle Ages. And from that point forward, all science is based on observation, on I think, on thought. That means that anything that is beyond the thinking is not accepted. This week, I told you I just came back from a travel. I was in China, and I was telling them, I literally was giving a talk in a hospital, and there were Chinese medicine doctors there that want to talk to me more, but I'm like, they know more than me in theory. But I was telling them, chi lines are real. Why? Because I have had that experience. I don't have it all the time, but sometimes I see blue lines going through people and I see red lines. So when the lines are red, there's a disease there. So I know that that's where the energy is not flowing well. So I can diagnose people just simply by looking at them. And they were like fascinated because they invented this. But somehow I've forgotten about it.
Well, I think that's the thing is when it comes to the concept of authenticity and being able to be open, like even when you said there was pieces where like when you did this air quote thing, like when people quote unquote die. And I'm like, I don't know, you got something unlocked or something opened that is beyond a rational observation that somebody can quantify with a piece of equipment that we have today, which let's even challenge how accurate can it be if we just made up a piece of equipment that measures something that would, I don't know, a ghostometer or something. We just make one up. And if you're like, no, I went through all of the lifetimes and the time and I saw the things and I came back and I cannot deny what is there because I saw what is there, but I can't prove what it's like when you died. I don't know. And so there has to be some sort of plausibility to say, let's challenge everything, which is the warrior's way, to say, let's consider the information before we get dismissive. Like, let's listen first. Try to at least understand. Try to go, well, maybe there's something there, because to say that I am the center of the universe is too audacious to me. It doesn't make any sense because there's too many things I know I do not know. How can I be the center of all of it?
They're funny. I think of us as little ants. The other day, I went biking, and it's very, very hot here in Thailand. So on the way back, I sat down, and there were all these little ants, and I was eating something. So I took a piece and left it there, and it was too big. There's like 3 ants that went there, and they won't touch it. So I took a tiny little piece that was more their size, like maybe 3 times their size, and then put it there, and then suddenly all the ants are going for that piece. And I realized that from their perspective, the other piece is too big. It's not usable. It's not something they understand. But the little piece is something that they create. So suddenly, like, they're bringing all their soldiers, and I was playing with the ants, right? But but it was so cute to see that the smaller piece was more interesting to them than the thing that could probably feed the whole entire colony for a week.
It's such a good analogy. I didn't know much about you before this conversation, but I'm more and more fascinated as we keep going along. I think it's one of those things where one thing I've come to for people is that most people today can't handle the truth. Like, they can't handle what is, because it's like that big piece for the ants. They're like, there's no way that can be anything useful, or I could handle that, or I even could conceive of that. And if this is where, like, I have a theory, this is not a religious thing. This is just more of a concept of, like, even that dimensions that you just explained and the different 3D models that would be time or how that all works. If there was a story I heard, I'm going to make it short. There was like a guy who was like lived in a cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and like it was wintertime and it was brutally storming outside. And he did not believe in God, did not understand why Jesus would come down, made no sense to him. It's like, it's a stupid story. I can't get it. It just doesn't make sense. And there was a bird that was trying to get out of the storm and kept hitting his window. And he's like, no, you got to quit hitting that window. you're going to break your neck or something. You're not going to do good. That's not going to work. And the bird's just trying to get in, and you can see the bird just hitting the window. And he's like, stop doing the window. Stop it. And he's yelling at the bird to quit hitting the window. He's like, what? I wish the bird could understand, but the bird doesn't understand what he's saying. He's like, ugh. He's like, if only I could speak bird, or I could turn into a bird and say, hey, bird, that's not going to work. And then he was like, oh, they can't explain it to us the way that they see it. He had to turn into a bird to explain bird to us, so we could at least kind of understand, quit hitting the window. Okay, I get, we wouldn't understand it even if he said, and even still, my theory on this is they're like end of days, end of days, end of days. It seems like it's always been end of days forever. And it's like, well, maybe it's one of those things where when the truth was actually given, it's going to take a certain degree of us evolving to accept it, not just know of it, but accept what that is so that he can actually do his thing. And now he's just waiting for us to catch up with what it is. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not saying that's the prophecy. This is just, I don't know. They're waiting for us to get it. He came, spoke, bird. Now when are we going to quit hitting the window?
In China, I actually went to meet my brother because he lives in Boston. He's a professor at MIT, so super smart guy. One of the smartest people in the world, obviously, and very successful. And he doesn't believe anything I believe, obviously. He thinks I'm weird or crazy. It's okay. Right. But I am like, hey, I think crazy people are better. But anyway, the point is that it was funny because we spoke at the same event because we're both MIT graduates. So it was organized by the MIT alumni group. And one of the audience said, oh my God, it was like watching Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange. I was like, yeah, that's a really good analogy. Thank you. But I want to say a story from years ago. So I've had many out-of-body experiences, and one of those most beautiful experiences was going into what we call the Godhead, so all the source of knowledge. And it's a little bit weird, but we're past the normal stage anyway, right? I was meditating, but I spent a lot of time meditating in my life, right? Especially before 2012, because I was trying to find the truth. It was an incredible experience. And there's a being that came, and could be Jesus, could be someone else, I don't know. But he said to me, rise. And I just like literally, I remember even though I was praying and meditating, I was like, I can't do that. I'm in my body. And the second time he said it, I still didn't know. But the third time I kind of knew. I was like, oh, I can just get out of my body. And I did. So I rose out of my body. And I remember I looked back into my body and I was like, oh, that's going to hurt, right? Because I was cross-legged, traditional position, right? So I was like, I went back and put my legs in a more comfortable place because I'm like, when I come back, it's going to be painful. But somehow that awareness was okay at that time. It made sense. And he said, follow me. And he took me to the Nathomite Library, which is the ancient text scrolls from the Bible that were unearthed in the desert in Israel. And I started reading. And there's a saying in the Kabbalah, which is the sacred text of the Jewish, that the truth cannot be read. It can be only experienced. And as spirit, I understood. It was incredible. I could see past, present, and future. I could understand everything. Everything that is here, I could understand. You had told me what happens then, and I would be able to tell you because from that perspective, I knew everything. And then I got distracted because I saw humans, and always humans are suffering, right? So I was like, oh, why are you suffering? Why are you suffering? Why are you crawling on the ground? Let me tell you, let me help you. So I kind of flew to humans and I wanted to impart that knowledge. And I saw my family and they were suffering and I was trying to lift them. And my dad was so heavy. He fell on top of me. And that was enough heaviness to bring me back into my body. And that was many hours later that I'm back in my body. And it's kind of funny because I had 38 calls on my phone that I hadn't heard, right? So I was obviously not there. And I remember I started writing. As I started writing, because I wanted to write that experience, but as I started writing, the words, formulating the words, it's as if I had the ocean of knowledge and it came in my head and suddenly it was gone. And I was like, wow, I had lost it. I can't remember. The only thing I remember was this idea of perfection. So it was like everything is perfectly balanced. And the idea of the goodness of the universe, because at that point I was really struggling. How can there be so much evil? I don't understand. But it's because it's perfectly balanced. What we perceive as evil is just the other part of the balance. but it's not bad. There's what is underneath it all is so good. But anyway, so I called my brother, the MIT professor, right? And, super brainy guy. And I said to him, hey, I just had this incredible experience. Can I please tell you? And then, I told him the experience and he kind of didn't say much. And then after a few seconds, or I don't know, he kind of said, Maria, I was just sitting here with my wife in the Esplanade. So that's like it's a park in Boston. And we're just watching everything or listening to songs. And there's one particular song, it's a French song that said, God, even if you don't exist, give me a sign. And in my mind, I kind of prayed and I said, God, even if you don't exist, give me a sign. And you just called me to tell me this. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was kind of like my moment of like sharing this with him. But I remember always that experience as like, what a gift it was. And it also gave me the understanding of how little we are as humans. And now I understand the analogy, right? I don't know if you've heard it, like that there's an ocean of knowledge and we're like little children with our little bucket and we're trying to fill our little hole with our little bucket, thinking that we're emptying the ocean. It doesn't work. It's like infinite. We're just tiny little children with like a little tiny bucket. But you know what? Our little bucket can contain a little bit of water, and that's okay. That's enough to play in the sand.
That's beautiful. And it's also so like, I guess it's so self-fulfilling as far as like the truth cannot be read. It can only be experienced, that when you come back to try to write it, it can't be written. Our even in our language can't even conceive the experience. And even if you tried to, it wouldn't be understood because it's too limited.
I literally saw the words, like, and I was bringing the knowledge and I was putting it to words, and anything I was writing, I mean, it's like it just couldn't be written. And it's not because it wasn't there. It's because it doesn't fit. Our head is too small. And that's the humility and understanding of being human, to know that we have access through our higher being, soul, bubblegum, whatever you want to call it, to all this. And yet we are limited to the human existence. There's a movie, since we talked about movies, called Aladdin. I don't know if you saw it, with Robin Williams, right? And it's a phenomenal scene where he's the genie and he's like, phenomenal cosmic powers. And then he goes, itty bitty little living space. And it always made me think of humans. It's like phenomenal cosmic powers because we have access to everything. And yet we're really constrained by a tiny little itty bitty living space.
It's such a good analogy. It's fascinating that was the way that worked. Like, and I felt the same way too. I feel the same way even when it comes to the power of choice itself, where I was like, it's interesting that we're given such a limited amount of ability to understand everything that there is to understand, but we have unlimited access to choice. Like it's like, that's why I would say it's like if you were giving those ants a bazooka. It's like they're like, we can blow ourselves up. We don't know what we're doing with this stuff. And like we have unlimited power to choose anything. And this gets into the healing aspect also, where we can choose also the way we handle all of these situations. We can choose our reactions. We can choose our responses. We can choose our defenses. We can choose the way we help or don't help others. We can choose all of these things with unlimited choice. In fact, we make hundreds, if not thousands of choices every day, most subconscious. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to drink it. Or I'm going to write that down. Or I'm going to pick up a thing. Or I'm going to, hey, how you doing? I'm going to wave. Like these are all choices that we make that we don't even have awareness of. And we have unlimited, get that water. We have unlimited choice, but we have such a limited ability to be able to really understand the power behind all of this free will. Nice shot.
And this is the amazing part of being human is that I always explain humans as ex-humans, like I call us ex-humans in reference to X-Men because I'm a big action movie fan. and but I call us ex-humans because we're not just X-Men. and that's because if you, and I don't want to get too into the details of that, but there's a part of us that's connected above and there's a part of us connected below, and they cross at the heart. And we have the ability, the magical ability in our heart to transmute that through love. That is how we heal. We take something that was given in this earth to us that is painful, and if we love it completely, then it becomes healed. And the secret is that it's not healing only for us. It's healing for the world, for the planet. Anytime I come to an awareness, it feels like a lot of work. And I also know that that awareness is actually good for not just Maria, it's for everyone. And that is the work that we do. That is why it feels so heavy, because there's so much pain that we're lifting. But that pain can be really only gone from the earth in one go. If one person is experiencing it, it's still there. And I always say that when we judge people who are criminals, like we are so much better than them, right? Even forgiveness is not a real concept. We can love them. God forgives. Because forgiveness assumes that somebody's broken and wrong and we are correct and not broken. When in fact, if we see it, it's there and it's part of us. So I always say, just instead of judging, love. Instead of separating, accept and become a part of them. And then you will see something that maybe you have missed before.
This is highly reassuring to me. And I think I'll make sure that when I publish this next book that you get a copy, because what you're saying is what I have found in a very, like, I come at it from a different angle because my strength did come mind, body side, and I've had to tap into spirit, and I just opened up my heart. And like, this is all new emotions to me. This is why I also have very little pushback, because I'm experiencing the same things. I've talked to other people who are very powerful spirit side, we're finding the same answers, but we're coming from very different places to get those answers because we have different strengths or abilities to get there, but it's still finding the same thing. And I'm writing on truth, control, acceptance, and peace, and how you find those pieces through a balance inside of ourselves. And I don't have as much strength in this heart side the way you're explaining it. So I'm very interested, these may be the missing pieces I'm looking for. So I'm very grateful to you for sharing these, because you said they cross at the heart, this conduit of us connected to above and connected to below, and how it crosses through the heart. Well, I had a very repressed heart also, and most men do. Also, I work with men, and so when I'm working with the guys, oftentimes that heart part is very closed off to protect, because there's very low empathy for men. And so the guys have to protect themselves because their feelings are considered shameful or wrong. And so the only feeling they're allowed to have to show any type of control or dominance or confidence would be anger. And it's the only one that guys will generally lean into, but they have to suppress true happiness, forgiveness, joy, but also suppress sadness and vulnerability, and anything perceived as weakness all gets converted to anger, because anything that goes too far as judged by others in that category will be rejected. And so the only thing that appears to be tough and strong and I can handle everything would be the anger category, which in a relationship then is also shamed and judged. It may be a reason why to be chosen because it's a perceived protector. But then once you're a protector, if you ever use any of that strength on your pack, you are now shamed again, which means I now have access to no emotions and no heart. And these guys are highly repressed.
By the way, have to say this. Shame is such a useless emotion. Shame and guilt. No, never, never.
It's the second rule in the warrior's way is no blame, no shame, no judgment, because it just gets in the way of healing. It's the second rule.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We're finding the same answers. And this is why I love seeing people who have seen further than me that are confirming that we're seeing the same things, because I feel that same thing where God works through me, but in a very different way than he works through you, which is why I cannot discount you. Even though I fall hard into psychology and philosophy, this thing, when I built the map of how humans work, came at 3:30 in the morning when I was in a dead sleep that said, start drawing circles. And I've run this through multiple experts in psychology, and it hasn't been beaten yet. Nobody's been it seems completely wrong. They're it's the closest I've ever seen to being right. I can't take credit for that, because that came in the middle of the night. And now it's a tool that helps me find where people are to help them break through their grief. And so what is that? I can't explain the connection I had to a piece of information that keeps being correct, even though I never.
Okay?
Give it,
okay?
please.
All right. Remember, you asked me what I do, and I talked about leadership. I realized I asked, being a genius, I asked, what is that genius? What is that genius moment? Because we're geniuses. I am very good in math, in science, in normal things, right? But there's this one moment of genius that goes beyond. That is what we are looking for. And I'm going to explain it in a simple way, but first I'm going to say that wherever you are seeking is causing you to seek. So if you're obsessed about finding an answer, it's because that answer wants to come through you. So you have all the resources necessary. You have everything you need to be the one that brings it here. So I'm going to explain it as simply as I can. So there's two sides of the world. This side, the visible side, my hand, that looks pretty solid, and the invisible side. The invisible side is just as crazy as this side. It still has polarity and all that stuff, but it has the access to the oneness. And I do understand the world as one now, and I do see this oneness throughout. But I also see that every single one of us is like a little ant getting at one piece of that little, of that big food piece that they're going to get, right? And maybe it looks like impossible to grasp, but from their perspective, they can get one little piece. So let's call this the oversoul. So our oversoul here, and the oversoul of the idea, project, or concept that you're here to create are almost in agreement from the other side that they're going to come through. So you become the mother and the father, and your child will be the actual idea. It can take the form of an idea, it can take the form of a book, it can take the form of a project, it can take the form of a company. It doesn't quite matter what it becomes, but it becomes our creation. Our creation then becomes, it's almost like two oversouls. And, the most common thing is a mother and a father bring together a baby. But any creation is a baby. It's not necessarily a physical baby. It's not biological, but it is. So your oversoul and the oversoul of that idea, if you want to call it that, are coming together. And when we sleep, we have a little bit less resistance. Our mind is less active. So we join, our brain operates in alpha, theta, and delta in the slower stage. And when we're speaking, that's beta, right? When it slows down, when we're watching TV or we're being brainwashed, that's alpha. And theta is underneath. And that's very, very slow brainwaves. And our ability, our magical ability, that's why we need deep sleep, is that for a few seconds per day, we hit delta. for a few seconds per day, our brain slows down enough that we almost connect to the consciousness, if you want to call it that. That's why a lot of brilliant ideas come in the middle of the sleep, because we're finally connected. We slow down the mind enough to get to that point. So you were meant to grab that idea, and that was the opportunity your oversouls kind of found for you to get given that idea.
I love the explanation. I appreciate it so much. Most of the time, and my Andrea knows, I'm woken up in the middle of the night often and start writing. It happens all the time. And I find answers that it should have been so obvious, but it's like it comes through whatever that moment is where I'm like, there it is. And I have to very quickly get up and try and put it down as fast as I can, because I know I'll lose it if I don't. And that's where a lot of the almost all of the answers that I found to find very simple breakdowns for very complex things have come from the middle of the night. And so I have also trained myself to not require as much sleep, because I can grab that moment, then I'll be up from 3 to 5 and then go back to bed after I put the idea down. I'll grab it, and then I don't throw it away. We have to use this later. But a lot of the stuff that I have put down or I've found has been very profound to people who are experts in the field. And they're like, where did you learn this? And I'm like, this is just the stuff that's come to me. I didn't go to a class for that. That came in the middle of the night. And a lot of these tools that I'm creating, the movement that I'm creating, the men that I'm training, the people that I'm helping to also lead, which we'll get to the leadership part, this stuff is coming as part of a purpose that came from a side that I did not expect my purpose to come from. And my purpose also came from misery. My purpose also came from pain. It also came from suffering. And then being able to find where my place is in design because of all the stuff that I've gone through was not the answer I expected. This was not going to be it. I thought it would be in some form of understood psychology or philosophy, and it ended up becoming more of a spiritual fight that I didn't expect would be my fight, not by any stretch.
I feel that very often we forget that we are given everything. The fight is really internal. And remember, I'll have to tell you that I've studied religions around the world, and there's this concept in Islam about jihad, which is very misunderstood and very misused right now, but it is really the concept of internal fight. You're fighting yourself. You're fighting yourself to go beyond. And that is necessary. That is the healthy fight, because then we are able to. We don't need to fight anyone else, just ourselves. And I wish people who are judging Muslim people understood that whatever is being done by extremists has nothing to do with the actual religion. It's a religion of love, deep love. And the Quran is extremely loving. I mean, I read it, and it's an extremely loving book. And I know people who think I'm a heretic simply for having read it. I'm like, this is their book. There's love in there. Why are we missing the love? If we are loving, how can we judge others, and how can we judge where they find the love? They find the love, and then there's love there. I always say when I do clearings to people, they're like, well, if we do clearings, is that, I'm like, let's clear all the emotions with your husband, with your kids, right? And they're like, well, is that going to take them out of my life? I'm about to, absolutely not. Love is real. Love is truth. So any love is going to remain, but all the little drama that you've created and all the little triangles and super bad, unhealthy habits are going to disappear, and that's much better for you. So yeah, let's get rid of that. Because what remains is love. Always at the center is love. I love that the first song that was ever transmitted on television was the Beatles. All you need is love. That's all we need.
I'm definitely we're gonna have to have more conversations where we exchange tools here. Because I'll go through some stuff with some of the things that have come into me, And I think that you'll have a lot of fun breaking it down and going through the pieces. I think that you'll love it.
Sure. Why not?
But
That's fun for me. That's
even when I go through a map, the way that it's designed, a lot of times I feel like beliefs are at the core, but I've also heard that love is at the core. But it could be that I have the diamond in here, and I'll go through this with you. I happily one day, like we'll go through it.
Yeah.
But it's plausible the way that you're explaining that the trio that I have here, that's based on psychology, which is values, feelings, and beliefs, that is direct. I directly did the same thing, opposite and connected to beliefs with love, where love is also connected through feelings, values, and beliefs. But I don't start there often because the complexity gets too deep and we work through beliefs, but it's got a direct line to love. And it's one of the only ones that has all three connected.
Remember I told you that everything's three-dimensional? Like I was explaining how time is three-dimensional. So what you have is a map at 2D, but it came from a 3D model. You drew it as 2-dimensional, but it's 3D. So start exploring that dimension. One more dimension you're missing.
I'm with you already because I try to explain it in 2D, but like even the experts I've saw who are trying to go like, what about this? I'm like, well, that's in here. What about that? Like, so my brain sees it in 3D and or more.
Yeah, or more.
Well, each circle is like its own information.
Everything spins. Yeah, everything is. It's almost like a tree that has trees inside. But at the bases, you have to realize that the way the universe, think of it as the space. Like we were talking about the gravitational fields before. And by the way, big fan of gravitational fields. And I love the work by LIGO. Thank you, MIT and Caltech, right? So that's Nobel Prize 2017. Because Einstein proved something. He said E equals mc squared. Right. So he gave us an equation of how to correlate energy and matter. And he said that he predicted that there's a correlation of gravitational fields that are spanning the universe. And now we can perceive them. Yeah, we can measure them really unaccurately for really, really, really big events, right? But that can also be done on the human side, on the human dimension. And yeah, we don't have tools. We really don't have tools. But we have us. We're the tool. We're the measuring tool.
I love it. You're fascinating. This is really fun. Like, so I appreciate you so much. And like, this has been far more exciting than I had anticipated. I was like, we're going to do leadership talk. Sounds good. But I really enjoy the depth and complexity that you're bringing to this. Like, this is a lot of fun. And I don't get to do is like, I've got my esoteric friends who like to go super, super deep. And they're like, I lose everybody. It's so frustrating. And so like, I enjoy that you're like, let's go ultra deep and let's explore. And it's a lot of fun. So I really enjoy this.
So I hope we didn't lose all the audience by now, but
I don't care. They can, if they've checked out, this wasn't for them, but there are certain people who this is able to wake them up. And this is the thing. There's certain people that are going to be like, I never even considered asking the questions around what you're saying the answers for.
I had a lady that came to my talk a couple of days ago. Remember, she just came back from China, and she literally sent me a message. Thank you. It was really challenging listening to you, but also very opening. Because I was challenging everything this woman believed. And at the same time, I was telling, hey, let's do it. But the thing is that, what is special about me is that I went through a couple of decades of pain and suffering, really 1 decade of concentrated pain and suffering. And I survived. The fact that I survived is probably what is unique about it. And also, like, I was so emotionally difficult that I was suicidally depressive, right? And the fact that I didn't commit suicide is also pretty special about me. But the rest is just stuff that is available to every single person. There's nothing else that's super special about it. And It's funny because the only reason we don't go there is because we don't even know the door exists. But I'm sitting here with the door open and I'm like, please come in. And yeah, just come in.
Yeah, I have more journey to go to find the door, but I have no denial of the door. I just have to do more exploration to find that door. Like there's no argument. I'm not arguing. There's no door.
No.
No way, Maria, you are wrong. I know more. Like, if you're like, no, I found the door and there's a door. I'm like, where is this door? Like, I'm no arguing. Where is this door so I can find it? And, I do struggle with meditation, as one of my systems. I struggle with that, like that option. I do more writing and I let out this way.
And that's okay. I'm a very smart person. My mind is going, I don't think I'm as smart as I were, but back when I was in college, I measured my IQ at 165. So I claim that that's my IQ. I'm sure right now it's like probably 80, but I don't care. And I cannot stop my mind. I cannot. Traditional meditation is like, oh, just quiet the mind and breathe. It's like, what the? You can't do that.
I struggle with it too. Yeah.
And so I realized that whatever works for you, and there's different techniques. I use meditation just because it's popular right now and a lot of people understand it, but writing is perfect. You can do automatic writing. I don't know if you've ever tried that, or you can do like, you can walk, you can do walking. This whole principle of mindfulness, and I'm in Thailand, so they speak a lot about mindfulness in Buddhism. But the whole idea of mindfulness is that every moment of every single day is a moment of introspection. Whatever we are doing, as long as you're in the moment, in the now, right now, we're talking. That can be very enlightening and spiritual. It doesn't have to be anything else. That's it. That's your meditation for the day.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Even when I did an entire webinar on happiness, and people are always seeking happiness. And I've seen very advanced explanations for happiness, like Harvard professors and people who are like, this is what happiness is. And I was like, it can't be right, because I know people who have no idea what you're talking about who are happy as hell. So that can't be the answer. And so I came up with a definition with my guys, and the definition is the awareness of the blips in life that are found in nouns or verbs, is as far as I've gotten so far. And the reason why is, like you said, the mindfulness of being present, to be able to see that the current moment we're in is temporary and not meant to last. The way we measure it so far is within our life and the time that we have, that like we're in a moment right now that is going to come and then it will go. And this day will never happen again, at least the way that we're traveling through the time of it as it is. And so do I have awareness of these temporary moments of beautiful time that are in people, places, things, or things that we love to do? And like, we're in a blip right now, and we're like, what an awesome moment that we're in. We're in one right now. And most people will find the negative. They'll miss all of the joys and all of the blessings and all of the things that are temporary by design that are happening, because they can't be present or mindfulness in that we're in something that's not meant to last. And that's what makes it beautiful.
This is the amazing wisdom in the Tao Te Ching, or if you think of the yin yang, like everybody has seen that, right? So it's like two pieces interconnected, and we think dark is light and we think light is dark. So one is white, one is black, and there's a dot in between, right? But what does it say? Everything's connected. In every moment, there's both. In every moment, I can tell you, in this moment, in this exact moment that we're speaking, there's something good and there's something bad at the same time. What are you focusing on? What are you choosing to focus on? That's it. If you choose to focus on the negative, that's what your life is. If you choose to focus on the positive, that's what your life is. In this exact moment. I was explaining this the other day with somebody. We were sitting in a park, and then I'm like, look around. There's somebody fighting right now. There's somebody screaming. There's a little kid that's crying. There's a little, there's maybe an insect eating the other. Death is here as well as life. Maybe there's a little, something being born. We don't know. But in every moment, everything is present. But awareness is our choice. Where we are is our choice.
I love that we are finding the same stuff. First lesson is awareness. The whole entire creed for what we do is in the moment of finding the choice in the moment. And that's when anything can change. And then section 13 in my first program is we go through a belief exercise where give me any scenario. We can turn it either great or we can turn it terrible. Like give me any scenario. And even like you going through, this is my life experience. And I can either turn it into something beautiful or I can turn it into a nightmare. I can do either. And how powerful it is that you can control that. It's in my first program. That's amazing that like we're finding the same answers. And I'm not even tapped in as deeply as you. I listen, it's exciting to me because I'm like, how validating.
Of course you are.
I don't know. Like, listen, I cannot travel into the other dimensions like you can or break the veils. I don't have that power yet. That's not my gift. That's your gift. But I can trust that gift is existing because I have had glimpses into it, but I haven't been able to deep dive.
And I kind of want to bring us to a close because when I saw that we had 2 hours schedule, I thought it was a mistake, but I kind of didn't plan anything for 2 hours and I left a break and afterwards, but I do have something coming up. So
no, we can call it there. I would be honored and love to be able to do another one. And we can get into leadership because most of what I do is in leadership and training men for. So like, I would love to cross-reference that too. And I just really loved the way this went.
Yeah, no. And that's why I'm like, I'm going with the flow. I'm just like, whatever. And by the way, I had this conversation a few days ago. Going with the flow does not mean that we're going to choose. It's that we are choosing where to go. It's like, this is flowing that way. Well, a couple times I tried to bring it back to leadership and it didn't go that way. And that's okay too. I did throw some comments in that made sense to me and that can be used for leadership. And that's enough. And going with the flow does not mean let's be passive and do nothing. It's like, okay, but let's accept what is as well.
Yeah. And I do the same thing with every call that I have is I just go into like, where does it feel like the most energy or passion is coming from? And where am I the most connected to the conversation where it's going? And I am also deeper in my journey now because I feel very strong on my mind and body side on that like tactics to action side. I feel very strong. That's my strong side. But connecting through spirit and heart is my side. I'm growing so much faster, but it is not my strongest side. And I know that I'm working through connection. I'm working through heart. And I've only just recently opened my heart to be able to be worked on. So I'm going through very quickly on these areas, but I listen intently to people who are very strong in these categories where I'm like, there are pieces I need. So I do also gravitate towards like, where is the part where I need to grow the most? And I can see your strength is so high there that I'm like, yeah, of course we can get into tactics and body. Yes. What are the plans and strategies and what are we going to do? I love the leadership aspect. Fine. But I can see your strength in these areas that I need more strength in, and I would love to hear more. So I had to, I guess, enjoy the beautiful blip of the moment of seeing the strength that you have there.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And it was a beautiful conversation. Thank you for having me.
We'll do another one. We're going to do another one. Thank you so much. This was great. Appreciate you. Yeah, it's like 10:30 at night here. I got my kids are all playing in the weight room right now. So I'm going to jump out with my girls and our nephew is here. But thank you so much for the prayer. Thank you so much for the time. And thank you so much for your insight and experiences. This has been...
And I do want to say that my team has sent you like a link. So if anybody is interested in talking more with me, I do offer an opportunity to to have a strategy session with me. And I don't know if anybody wants to do a strategy session after all the esoteric stuff.
I don't know if it's called
Okay.
that. I think this is more like a life-changing conversation. You should be calling Maria. Have one of those life-changing existential moments so you can find your purpose in leadership. This is a very qualified person to have that conversation with.
Well, thank you. I do want that. I do have a gift, and that gift is I can see through. So I usually can see people, and I'm like, that's your biggest trouble. Like, like if you have one thing that you can work on, is that. And this is your biggest opportunity. So I can do that very quickly with anybody. So
listen, I'm even more intrigued. I'm like, what do you see, Maria? What do you got here? What's my thing? Go ahead and break me down. I'm very open to it. But maybe we'll save it for another day, because I know you have to go, and I'd be taking advantage of this awesome opportunity too much. But listen, at some point, feel free to go like, Rick, I saw your thing. You got red lines and blue lines, and here's what it is. And I'm like, what's my red lines? What's going on here? And they're like, your purpose is supposed to go here, but watch out for this choice. And I'm like, good to know.
Are you sure you want to do this online? Like,
I don't
maybe
care.
we'll do this offline.
I don't mind.
Okay, so the strongest pain you have is in the right side of the heart. So it has to do probably with your father, or definitely male. But and I can see why you work with men. But it's still raw. Like, I know you've done a lot of work because there's a lot of clearing there. But I also see like an active area of pain. And you run into that pain often. It feels like it's very raw. That's what it feels like. So I'm going to say that the one thing that you can work on is forgiving yourself for being a man. I don't know if that makes sense, but understanding that there's beauty in both being a man or a woman. And there's a lot of things that you crave that were not given to you, but that's because only as being a man, you can talk to men and understand what is missing. I don't get it because I'm a woman, right? But you get it. So that is, I always say that whatever is a big challenge for us, and it is because this was like the gift that we're here to find. It's almost like every pain I went through was the biggest gift because I was here to find it. Because by overcoming it, I can help others. I have forged the way that was not there. And I believe we're the leaders in that. As leaders, we open ways that were not opened before. And the way you do it is by really healing men's hearts that to you feels like such an impossible task, because you're like, oh my God, why didn't I just like get the easy path? But if it was easy, it would have been done already. You won't be a leader in that sense.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. And definitely a lot of the stuff I've had to work through was dad's side. And I have a lot of forgiveness and a lot of grace from my dad. But just opening my heart so far, the protection and the love and the pride and all of those pieces that were destroyed when I was a kid, I've been healing through myself by bringing the other strong parts of me. And if I had to describe the inner child, where did he find that protection? Whenever I'm doing any type of heart healing work, I have this like image or personification of my warrior, my body, my strongest side is who hangs out with my inner child the most. And like that little kid nobody wanted to play with him for so long. And he's like, yes, but he's gravitated towards the strongest and most capable protector. And because of the health of my warrior side. Yeah, well, because of the health of my warrior side,
absolutely,
he's been able to go like, I'll just let the little guy win and we'll hang out together. And he encourages him and he's proud of him. And he's become almost the part that's become the big brother that I always wish I had, but I was the oldest boy. So there was no figure like this. And so I've had to become the healing part for that little kid. And he's become so strong and so confident. That part is good. And the broken-hearted part where you said, like, I can identify with men because there's that disconnect to women is probably why God's put me in a house with 5 girls. Because like, he's like, you'll give you the practice for this. We'll get you there. But there's a lot of damage in there, especially from the romantic, is just a broken-hearted guy, just very, very damaged from women And there's just a lot
Remember,
that's
no
been
one
there.
is broken. No one is broken.
Oh, no, he's doing better because he identifies with my mind side, which is very ironically a Tony Stark figure also. And so very creative, ingenuitive, and will figure out a way to make something that doesn't exist happen. And so my romantic heart side is connected with the confidence from my mind side. And it's neat to find these pieces finding themselves. But I have almost this apostle-like figure in my spirit side, which is like, I'm here to follow. I'm not here to, you show me where to go. I don't know. I'll go the direction, which gives me a lot of certainty and a lot of faith to be able to have a conversation like this without judgment and without anger and without being offended, because I'm like, there's too much I don't know that I need to be open to. And I love that you also have such a strong warrior presence because you also truly challenge everything. And I love that so much because I think the authenticity of being able to challenge what is true to create new agreements is so needed right now, that people are closed off to any type of growth because they can't see beyond their own pride. So thank you for that. I openly take the reading because that makes it so I can feel like, because you're not wrong. It's interesting you said it's on like the right side. It's on the right side of the heart, which is the father side. It's very interesting, like, because that's where there's a lot of damage. Both sides have done damage, but like in different ways. But yeah, it was the father was where it was a lot of damage. As the oldest boy, I took the heaviest piece of it. I took the brunt of it. And my dad was also highly abused. He was also not okay. So he was just paying it forward.
It is a cycle. It is a cycle.
But I had to break this generational curse because I will not pass this forward.
Absolutely. And that is how we heal. We take the pain and say, no more. I'm not giving it as pain. I'm giving it as love.
Yeah. I love it. And my purpose is, and it's interesting you said that, because to say my purpose is to heal men's hearts, which is ironic because this is a part that I just opened to myself. It makes sense because I've been having more conversations that guys are really struggling to connect with because it's so closed off for men.
Beautiful.
Appreciate you very much, Maria. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was wonderful. We will be in touch, and I loved this. So I have so much gratitude for this conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good one. I will talk to you again. I know it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.